Right, as you're going to see, this is a really old video, and I am a hell of a lot fatter in that video, which I'm still fat, but anyway. And it was an original video that I did on the Citroen CX, how I convert it to electronic ignition. I'm just putting it all in one video. At the beginning, I'm talking about why and how electronic ignition works as it goes to points. And then there's 3 parts video where I actually convert it. I will put the timestamp down below so you can actually skip to the part you want to see. It's going to be quite a long video, over nearly 2 hours, I think. So I might do it again where I split it up again. But it's going to let you know exactly. Scooby-Doo's coming in apparently. There we go. That's Scooby-Doo. You'll see exactly how I did it. But not only that, 100% fact, this car has been going for years now. Never once even spluttered once. The customer's had 3 or 4 of these Citroens, and he said he's never, ever, ever had one that's ran as nice as this. And unfortunately, there's 2 different types of distributors you can get for these Citroens, and the one we had, you couldn't just put a plug and play electronic ignition in. Some of them you can, but the one we had you couldn't, so I had to do it this way. Enjoy the video.
This is the new merch that's coming out, and you better get it today because it'll almost be sold out. Subscription below so you can get this amazing, fantastic cup that has ever been born in the cup history.
Hello and welcome to another Bodgit and Leggit video. Now I'm just going to do a quick video on explaining points and electronic ignition, because in the next week or so we're going to be converting the Citroen CX to electronic ignition. So I just want to kind of show you the parts I'm going to put in and explain why we're doing it, and kind of the good points and bad points about points and stuff like that. Now, points, I don't have any in my hand, but I'll put a picture up here so you know what they look like. Points do work, don't get me wrong, they do work, of course they do, but they are fiddly, they are not reliable, they can just go like that. You know, water, anything gets in, depending on where they are in the car. Some of the old minis were a nightmare, where if you went through a water, it kind of get in the point and it would just stop. So reliability, they're not very good on reliability. So we're now converted to electronic ignition, which is a lot better. You can put a bigger spark through the plug, and it's modern. But we've actually got the most up-to-date modern electronic ignition you can possibly get. You can get electronic ignition that's 20 years old, but we've got the new modern bits. We're going to replace everything, new plugs, new leads, new caps, new everything. All the wires and absolutely everything, because the problem we're having with the Citroen at the minute is it's not giving us proper spark, and it's because of a few things. The coil, it's because of the wiring's old, all the connections are old, and rather than just trying to put a new coil and trying, you're just best off replacing everything. So I'm going to show you what we're going to put in, and hopefully we can be putting them on the Citroen. The first thing we're going to put on is a modern coil. So this is a coil, just looks the same as any other coil, looks the same as the coil that's in there. The coil that's actually in there has got a pre-resistor, so the power goes through the resistor before it comes back in the coil. And the problem with the pre-resistor is, if it's anyways dodgy, the power goes into it, but it doesn't come out of it properly. And if you don't get enough power going into these, you're not going to get enough spark. So we're taking out the pre-resistor because, again, it's 30-year-old technology. We don't need it. We're going to replace it with this coil, which is a lot stronger. So in other words, it puts more volts through, and it's new. So we're going to replace it with that coil. We have brand new, good quality HT leads. Now what we have to do is, they come, I don't know if you can see, they come with one end installed. We have to then cut them to length to put the other end on, depending on how long or short we need them. So these kind of will fit any car, but we're just going to make them suit our car. So, but again, what's inside them is all new, modern. They're high performance. They're twice as thick as the ones that are in the car. So again, that means more current can flow, more spark can flow, gets us a cleaner spark and a happier running engine. Now, these 2 gadgets are the most important part of our kit. We originally ordered this kit that was supposed to be just literally plug and play. You get a fitting kit, you install it into your distributor, it's nice and easy, you do it in literally a couple of hours. But unfortunately, the kit that we have for our car, even though it says it's for our car, isn't, and you cannot get one for it. But this will still work, it's just going to be a lot more work for me to try and get this lined up properly. But you can actually get special kits where they just literally plug and play, and what I mean by that is they're designed to fit straight into, you don't have to do any lining up, just plug it in, put the connection on, start the car, sound. But we can't do that, but we're still going to get the same effect at the end of it. So we have a brand new module here, and this is basically all clever and magic inside. What that does is that converts, so we have this little gadget here as well, which you can see there's a few leads. This sends, you can't, I don't think the camera's going to pick it up, in between there you basically have an infrared beam. And every time the chopper goes through the beam, which I'll show you that in a second, that then sends a signal to this, which then converts that to a spark, which then allows everything to work, and the spark to spark each plug as the chopper goes through. So these two are the most important parts. These aren't cheap. They're not cheap at all, but they are, you don't have to do anything with them. They don't particularly break. They're just what they are. Best thing about these is you don't have to do anything. There's no maintenance at all with these. You don't have to come back every 100 or so miles and clean this and check this and do it. Maintenance free. You just put them in, fire away, absolutely perfect. Which is a big thing because points, maybe once every couple of weeks you're adjusting them and setting them and cleaning them and everything, and it's a nightmare. This is, once it's in, we're going to have no problems. These are really the actual brains of the operation that we're putting in. Now what should have happened is, with this fitting kit, we remove the old points, put this plate in its place, this then screws to the plate, so imagine there like that. That then screws to the plate like that, which then is all set up for you, which is brilliant. But I can't do it with this one. I have to set this myself, but I'll go through all that. Not 100% sure I'm going to do it yet, but you'll see how I'm going to do it once I do all the videos. And what essentially happens is, this is the chopper. This should fit on the actual rotary arm. Now again, I can't put it on the rotary arm, but that's where it should fit. And as the rotary arm spins, this chopper spins through and breaks the beam. I'll show you there. Breaks the beam and sends a spark. So it's very, very simple, but it's very clever how this interrupts the beam and then this box converts it to a spark. So that's essentially how it works. And that's why once it's fitted, there is no maintenance, there is no cleaning, you wouldn't have to do anything. And it's very, very simple idea, but very, very clever. So that just spins through there 4 times or 6 times or 8 times, depending on how many cylinders your car is. That sends a spark, which essentially starts your engine, or keeps your engine running. And then we have a cap and a rotary arm. Now essentially what happens is, with all that magic stuff I've showed you, it comes up through here and the spark comes out of here, which hits one of these prongs here, which then in turn has a spark lead coming out, which then sends spark to that spark plug, depending on where this is in relation to the cap. So this spins inside the cap essentially, and as it hits each one of them legs, I don't know if you can see that, so as it passes each one of them legs, it sends a spark to that cylinder, which then keeps your car running. The faster you go, the faster this spins, so it keeps it all in time. And like I said, with this being electronic ignition, we're going to get 3 or 4 times stronger spark. You're not necessarily going to get, the car's not going to go any faster. Some people do say, it does put horsepower. It doesn't really put horsepower in your car, but what it does is it makes your car run smoother. So you use less fuel, your spark plugs don't get all gunked up very quickly. It just runs like a modern day car. Well, as such. So the actual running of the car is a million times better. Points are a nightmare, absolute nightmare, because as soon as the point fails, if when the point opens and closes, if that fails for whatever reason, for that second, it will spark, all the covers go black and you don't get any spark, the car will conk out. It won't happen with electronic ignition. So that's the upside to electronic ignition. Electronic ignition is just 10 million times better, because you know every time you come out to your car, whether it's cold, whether it's damp, whether it's raining, you're going to start your car and your car is going to start. And it's not going to fail because of spark, where points, it's a lottery. You can either start or it just doesn't. So that's the good thing about electronic ignition. And I have to have a big thanks to Monty from SC Parts, who I got all these parts from. He was very helpful. The only person really that actually tried to help me when I was looking for a kit. Everybody else says no, and they just basically wanted to get rid of me. But Monty from SC Parts, he actually went off. It took him a couple of days, but at least he made phone calls, he did what he had to do, and he basically got me a kit, and no one else would do that. So big thanks to him. I'll put his link to his website in the description. He does an awful lot of electronic distributors. He does everything for an awful lot of classic cars. He's in the UK, he's worth checking out if you do need anything along them lines. So I'm just going to show you on the car exactly what I mean. This is the distributor here. They more or less look the same on all distributors. Some are maybe slightly bigger, longer, shorter, but they more or less look the same. This is the distributor cap, which goes on over and clips. These are your spark plugs coming out. This is your rotary arm that spins around, and like I said, depending on which little pin it hits, does depend on which cylinder it's sparking. But what we have on normal ones, we have the points here, so this just pulls off. And on normal cars, you could say, but Citroen just like to do everything different, you have the points on the outside here. We have the points on the inside. And the easiest way to know if you've got points or electronic ignition is you need to look for your condenser. If you've got a condenser, so this gold thing on here, you know you've got points. If you don't have a condenser, you know you've got electronic ignition. That's kind of the easiest way to do it. I'm just going to quickly whip off this and I'll show you exactly what the points look like and how they work. And I do get how some people, you know, if they've got an old car, they want to keep it original. They don't want to be sticking new bits and stuff on, and I can kind of understand that. But the other good thing about this particular kit, you will not know it's in. There's going to be a couple of wires coming out of underneath here, but apart from that, you won't really know it's in. The distributor is still going to look the same. You can even keep the condenser on the top, so it'll even look like you've got points. You can take it off, it doesn't really matter, but what I'm saying is you can kind of make it look like it's original. But the problem is with points is, if you don't use the car every day, or even if you do use the car every day, but especially if you don't, you can set your points, leave the car sitting for 6 months, come back out and it won't start because the points are dirty. This is the problem with points. But once I take this off, you'll see, let's disconnect. We'll come back around and I'll show you the points. But I'm going to hide all the gubbins inside here. So they're all going to be hidden with inside here. So once the cover goes back on, you're not going to be able to see any of the new bits that are going in. So it's all going to be hidden in behind there. Now, we have a set of points inside here. Just turn on the light so hopefully you can see a bit better. So, essentially what happens is, that bar you saw sticking out spins around, and as it spins around, this opens, now not as much as this, but it opens and closes as it hits this little thing here, opens and closes, and that's what sends you the spark, and that's basically how it works. But in these little strike pads, if them strike pads have gone, they've got dirty, or it's sparked at the wrong time and they've gone all black, they won't spark properly. And if they're not the right distance, if the screws come loose or anything like that, and it actually moves, it won't open enough, or it'll open too much and the spark can't go between the gap. They're not expensive to buy. New points, only a couple of quid. They've never been expensive, but it's the annoyance of it. You know, if you go to start your car and it doesn't start, and then, especially with points, if it doesn't start and you try and start, your plugs and your engine, they're going to flood. So then you have to take the plugs out and you have to clean the plugs. You have to, and all this hassle because of these shocking things here. So once you take them out of the equation and put electronic ignition in, well then you're not going to have any problem whatsoever. Obviously the newer modern cars with single coil packs and wasted spark and sequential spark, yes, that is better again. But electronic ignition, you're never going to have a problem with electronic ignition as regards the same problems you're going to have with points. Yes, of course you can still have problems. You can have problems with anything. Coil packs can go, anything can go, but it's going to be a million times more reliable than these points are here. So that's essentially what we're going to do. I'm going to take out all these bits and hide all these bits inside here, so you're not going to really be able to see it. My tricky point is going to be getting everything lined up so this is in the right place to hit when cylinder number 1 comes around. That's what's going to take me a while. I'm going to have to make new brackets and stuff, but we'll do it, we'll get there. It's just unfortunately, rather than taking a couple of hours, it could maybe take a couple of days, but we're going to get there and the car is going to be a million times better for it. The customer, he comes out every day, it's going to start, he's going to have a smile on his face because he's driving his car every day and everybody's going to be happy. So that's the bits we're going to put in. I'm going to go into it a lot more detail once I'm doing it on the car, but at least you get the idea of what I'm going to put in, kind of what it looks like and what it does. And I can only suggest if you do have an old car, to convert it to electronic ignition, because you will just be a lot happier in the long run. Now, we are replacing everything. If you're going to do this, replace everything. New leads, new plugs, new caps, new arms, new wires, because if you try and use the old wires, or if you try and use, you're just going to cause yourself problems. So if you replace absolutely everything, and you're still having problems, well then you've got something else, unfortunately. But if you replace everything, you're not trying to go back on yourself. If you just replace half of it and leave all the old wires there, you're thinking, well, is it the wires or isn't it the wires, and all that sort of stuff. So I can only suggest when you do something like this, replace everything, buy the whole kit, and yes, it's not cheap, but you will be thankful for it when the car starts and you get, a big smile on your face when you're driving it all the time. Hello and welcome to another Bodgit and Leggit video. Now we're finally going to be doing work on this Citroen, so I'm going to convert it to electronic ignition. I still don't know how I'm going to do most things on it, so I'm going to just kind of have to be, as I'm going along, I'll figure it out. Don't know how long or many parts of this video there's going to be, so we'll see in the end. I'm struggling to talk, so I went to the dentist yesterday, so I might sound a bit funny, but we're going to get into it. I'm going to do the coil first, so I'm going to replace the coil, replace things as I go on, and then figure out other things as I go on. So let's get cracking into it. Right, some things might be difficult for me to film because as you can see there's not a lot of room, but we have the old coil down here and we have the pre-resistor on the side of it. Once I get it off, I'll actually show you a lot better. It's more or less looks identical to the new coil. Even the way it fits in, there's just 2 bolts to let the coil fit in, or you can even just loosen the mount, it just depends. We're going to put the new mount on and everything. You've got the HT lead that goes in, you've got plus and minus, so you've got the power that controls the rev counts and all that, and plus also the power going into it to actually make the thing work. But again, we've got some really old connections here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the kit in first and then I'm going to worry about the connection, because there's some part of the wiring loom I'm replacing, some part of the wiring loom I'm not, but I might have to put new connections on. As you can see with the likes of this wire here, we've got a connection, we've got 2 connections in the space of about 3 inches of each other. Now the more connections you've got, just the more possibilities you have for things going wrong. So I'm going to be taking out the likes of these connections because there's just no point having them, just having one connection, checking the wires. If the wires are okay, replace them with new connections, and we'll kind of go from there really. So what I need to do first is take this off, and it looks like 2 13 or 14 mil bolts. Well, the 13 mil bolts, one of them are easy to get, these are going to be quite tricky. We only actually have to take one completely off and loosen the other one, because the way the slots are, You should be able to get away with doing that. And what I mean by that is, as you can see, these are slotted. So if I loosen one, take off the other one, I can just slot this out. Now, just as I thought, we could slide it out. But there's something else on here. Let's just see what it is. We have the old coil. Be careful because all these are coming off. You want to keep. Now, obviously, it's old. I don't know if you can see, this is the pre-resistor here. There's a lot of rust, all the connections are rusty. This is the other connection I was telling you about. So you've got two connections within the space of a couple of inches of each other. So we're going to replace all them. So there, that's it. All there, even the actual connections on the coil. Again, I don't know if the camera's going to show this. Try and spin it. They're all rusty too, so all that rust and the connections are loose, which doesn't help. So all that rust, loose connection, old, it all adds up to kind of a big deal as regards making this thing working. And the last thing we have on this is basically a suppressor. It's a 2.2 microfarad. See, I can hardly talk because of my mouth. Anyway, so what this is really designed for is for radio interference. So with this old setup, you would struggle to maybe get radio stations, or you might get interference and stuff. But with our new setup, we don't actually need this. Now, it's a thing, don't throw it away, or kind of keep it. And if you do have any problems, you can always put it back in. But with this new setup, we should be having no interference problems. So I'm going to get rid of it for our new setup, and if we need to put it back, but it's not really a big deal. But for the time being, we're going to get rid of this. So all this is going. Like I said, I'm going to keep the original connections just for the minute. I'm going to wire everything in, and I'm going to go, once I've got everything in place, I'm going to go through everything to see what I need to take off, what I can live with, and all that type of stuff. So we're going to install everything first before I worry about cutting any of the wires off. So what I'm going to do now is very simply just put this back. What I'm also going to make sure is that I've got this the right way, and what I mean by that is, as you can see from the coil, you've got a plus and a minus. Now this can twist within this, and I'm just going to see, yeah, so we have the plus towards the engine, so when I put that in, my plus is towards the engine, it's not that way. So this can just, again, I'm not going to be able to show you because it's just too dark down there, but all I've done is I've just put it on the two little clips, two 13mm bolts, and that screws it securely to the actual frame or the mount of the car. Now if you are unsure when you're doing wirings, it's always good to take pictures of everything. Just get your phone out and take pictures of everything, because if you do accidentally pull a wire or something falls off, you know exactly where it goes. It's no harm to have a reference. What I'm going to do is, no point me filming this because you can't see. I'm just going to put this second bolt on, secure this, then we're going to transfer the wires from this coil to that coil, and then we're going to continue on with the job. Right, I tried to get a bit better camera angle. You can see the new coil just popping out here, and this is the old coil. Now, like I said, we're not using this here, so I can disconnect that, and lucky enough, the connection I was telling you about was actually for this. So we can take that out. Again, I'm not going to throw it, but we're going to take that out, and we're just going to use the straight connection. So we've got two of the battery connections, or the power connections here. And as, again, hopefully the camera's picking up, you can just see how rusty that connection is. Now, we are going to be replacing all these connections, but for the time being, I'm just going to put everything in place before I worry about replacing anything. So, I'm just going to connect these two wires. Now, we'll have the coil and everything out. So that's the old one. Now I can show you this a lot easier. You can see all the rust and all the connections, they're just rusty. This is, well, it might not be the genuine one, but it is definitely going to be, you know, 20 odd years old, if not maybe 30 odd years old. So, you know, it's good replacing that. The one we replaced it with is a lot stronger, it's a lot more modern. And again, we're not using this unless we have radio interference. We will use it, but at the minute we shouldn't need to. Now, a bit of history. And the other thing about these pre-resistors is if they're not working properly, they can take all the power away from the actual coil. So with the new modern ones, you don't need these pre-resistors. And there we go. So we're going to put that away. I'm not going to throw this, just going to put that away. Right, next thing I'm going to do is take off and make the new HT leads. As you can see, I've marked the cap. So it's 1, 3, 4, 2, which is the firing order, but we've marked the cap, so when I take them all off, I know basically where to put them back. I am going to be getting a new cap, but I'm just going to use this one for the time being. Now, one thing I have noticed, I'm just going to pull the plugs out of the way. Now the plugs are off. One thing I have noticed, I don't know if the camera's going to show it up, there's a thing here. It looks like a little suppressor on the HT lead, on number 1 HT lead. And it goes down to another little box, and what I think it is, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's kind of a rudimentary diagnostic socket. This will monitor the spark and the revs, and it monitors other things as well. It's the same as this. The timing light that you put on, this is basically what that is, so it allows you to monitor it. I don't think it's particularly needed. I'm going to put it back on, but I don't think we really need it. It's not going to affect us. I can still put my timing light on, so it's not the end of the world. But I just want to take all these leads off to get them, to get the length of them for the new one. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to pull this off, so I can take that out now. And we can still get the length of the lead. So, should hopefully now have, as we can see, all the leads off. I'm going to make the new ones. This is where you're going to want to take your time. I want to do this so they're nice and neat. I want to hide them, well, not so much hide them, but I want to put them in a different position to what they were, just to make the engine look that little bit neater. And so yeah, we're going to make the new ones now. And this is how we get them. We get the spark plug socket on one end, and we get nothing on the other end, because obviously we can cut these to size. Now you don't really have to cut them, but it just looks neater if you do. And we're going to use the old ones as the template for these new ones. And we get the one in the middle then. That goes between the coil and the HT lead. That's got no ends on. So we need to make both ends, but lucky enough I think that's just the right length. Yeah, I don't think we're going to have to cut that one, but we're going to definitely have to cut some of these here. So let's get this set up on the bench and we'll show you how it's done. Now, the way I like to do it is lay everything out first so you know where you're kind of going. So I've laid out the kit that I got. This is just some conduit, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the HT leads inside this conduit so it just looks like there's one kind of lead rather than 3 or 4. I'm not going to be able to put number 1 in this because of the thing I showed you on it, but I can put 3 of them in it. It just make it look a little bit tidier. We have the old leads here, so I know the measurements, and we have 2 sets of connections. Now, unfortunately, they're both wrong. We're not going to use these ones, so we can move these out of the way. We need this one. This one is for the coil. And again, these ones, they are kind of right, but unfortunately, as you can see, they're a 90-degree angle, and we need straights. So these are going to be no good, but these will be. Now, I'm going to have to cut these here, not use this 90, but that's not the end of the world. So I'm going to take one of them off here, so I'll take number 4 off. So wait for a minute, just so you can see. These have been made up as well. They're not genuine ones, and as you can see, if I pull this one out, we have the little connection, with the little connection there, so I can still use half of this connection. I'm just going to cut the 90 off and still use this connection, and I'm also going to use these rubbers here, so we'll be able to get away with it. So it's just a case of pulling these off first, as we can see. Pull it off. Now I've pulled the whole thing together, but that doesn't matter. I just need to get that out there now. But as we can see, that is now out of there. But we still have this for our lead. So what I'm going to do is, I don't need the old connection, but I do need the rubber. pick one of these leads. Now what you do have to be careful of is, inside the lead, the electrode starts there, so where it actually connects to the plug is there. So remember that. If your old lead and it starts at the top, you're going to have to stagger your lead, because you have to be very careful. These, to be fair, they look like they're about the same distance down. So it's a simple case. Now also remember, well, I didn't take that much off, so that's okay, but we need to cut, not here where the actual rubber ends, but where the actual bit inside ends. So we need to cut here. So just, that's another thing, don't cut where the rubber ends, because you need this bit of tail sticking out. So just put them all together, put them down. And cut, simple as that. Like I said, these are new modern plugs, so internally they're a lot better and they're more modern than the ones we're taking off. And now what we need to do is we need to cut and get a little tail, as you can see, so the wire in the middle, we need that now. And again, you can use the bit as use the bit you've cut off as a guide, so you know roughly where to cut it. Now you have to be careful here, this is like stripping wires. You have to take the rubber off and the white core out, but leave the actual bit in the middle free. And if you're unsure and you're a bit scared, the easiest thing to do is practice on the bit you've just cut off. Now all I'm doing is basically cutting it, and you can actually, as you can see, that popped out. But again, I'm used to it. I'm used to doing that with wires and all sorts. So practice on the new bit first. All I was doing, as I was pressing it, I was twisting it around my hand. So I'm cutting it, but I'm not pressing. If I press all the way through, too hard, I'm going to cut it off. So I wasn't pressing all the way through. I was just cutting it. And once you've done it, you can actually see. But again, if you're unsure, just practice. So again, I'm going to do it on the proper one. So just cut it round and pull it off. You can feel it going in. Simple as that. But you have to be careful, because it doesn't take much to snip that off. I'm going to use this, rather than using this to crimp it, because on the 90-degree bend, I'm going to crimp it internally here. Still exactly the same thing, it's not going to make any difference. I just need to make this smaller. So you can actually just push that straight for the minute, so I can get to it. And all I'm going to do is, how close do I want it? Yeah, that'd be fine. Cut this directly at the split. I don't know if you can see that. There's like a split in there, so I'm just going to cut that directly from the back. This might be a lot harder than, there we go. Just get through there. Now I'm left with just that. Now once we've done that, what we need to do is we need to bend the little tail down like that. Simple as that. Put this on then, not that one. Put this on now. The little tail you've bent down, make sure, as you can see from the connection, this is the split end, make sure it goes in where the end isn't split. So make sure it goes on the back where it's flush. So all you got to do, you can see, I'm just going to push that down. Again, it can be a tight fit, so I'm going to have to open this out slightly. So I'm just going to open the connection out slightly. So I've just, hopefully you can see that. Open that out. Well actually, lucky enough, that didn't go down, because what I've got to do, I've got to put on the rubber connection first. Now, these are thicker than the old leads, so it's going to take a bit of fiddling just to get this down. To make it easy, I'm just going to spray a bit of lube down here, just so this should hopefully slide on that bit easier now. Once I get it past it first, initially it's going to be okay. It's just trying to get it past. That's not going to work. So I'm going to try and open this up slightly. I have to be careful now. So I'm just going to put the pliers in. As you can see, I'm just stretching the rubber slightly, and we can maybe just open the pliers a little bit just to stretch that rubber. Have to be careful you don't break it. And now, as we can see, that has gone on with a bit of stretchiness. Once it's on, oh, it's the WD now, I can't grip it. Once it's on, it will just slide down. So that's what we need. Important to get that on first, because without that, you can put that connection on and you're going to have to rip the connection back off. So it's important to get that on first. Now, so the little leg we was talking about, you push the leg down, make sure it's at the back, so in other words it's not at the point here, because obviously as you can see it's not going to get proper connection if it's there, so we need to make sure that's at the back. It just stops it from moving and it puts it in the most secure position possible, and all we do then is slide this all the way down until it meets to the top of the connection, and then we need to crimp it. Now there is most probably a special tool for this, but I don't have one. I'm just going to use the pliers. I've never had a problem with using pliers before, so first I'm going to squeeze it together, but then I'm going to actually crimp it down. So I need that, as you can see, I don't know if the camera's showing you that, that's actually gripped into the rubber. So if I show that way maybe, and we can do the same with this one, so it actually is gripping down and pinching the rubber. Rather than just squeezing it together, I'm not squeezing it together, I'm trying to squeeze them two ends down so they actually pinch into the rubber. As you can see, that's basically it. So again, and it's best to squeeze it together and crimp it down at the same time. See if I can do it on camera. It's a bit difficult on camera, but you get the idea. So we can move further down into the pliers, crimp it down, crimp it together. As we crimp it down and crimp it together, and believe me now, that is not going to move. And it's always a good thing to check it. Try and pull it apart, because you shouldn't be able to pull it apart. If it pulls off too easy, you know you're going to have to do it again. You kind of do have a couple of goes with this, but you do want to just get it right kind of first time. And then we slide this back up. You want to keep it, well, it depends on your, all depends on what cap you've got, but you want to keep it just above the cap. Maybe sometimes you might want it about there. The easiest way to know if you've got it right is you want to fit it back in the cap, make sure it actually crimps in and it pushes in like that. You don't want it pushing in and it only goes up to there. It needs to go all the way in like that. So that's how you know, and it's as simple as that really. Nothing to it. And then the other end is for the plug. Now, yeah, I can't show you the connection inside there, but it's very similar to the connection I've just showed you. But you can feel, now this is not the right plug for the car, but you can feel it kind of clipping in into the connection. So, and again, these connections can work the way loose too. So if they're actually, if they don't feel like a good connection, you can very carefully get some pliers and actually push down onto them just to, you're not able to see in there, but just to crimp the connection together. But that really is, that's as simple as, that's really is. It's very, very simple. What I'm going to do, just so I know for my own sake, I'm going to do one lead at a time, and I'm going to mark on the lead what number it is. So with this lead is number 4, so I'm just going to do 4 lines like I did on the distributor cap, just in case for any reason it gets muddled up, I don't put it back or anything like that, we know exactly where it goes. And you can always, once you've actually got the job done, you can just wipe the Tipp-Ex off so you can't really see it. But we just know then that this goes to number 4, we know it's in and we know it's fine. I'm going to do the rest, the other 4 now, because I've got to do the centre one, and once I've done that we'll turn the camera back on and it's one more thing done. One thing is you need to make sure is when you're crimping these connections, if you crimp it just one way, so I'm just going to show you this old one, so if I press all the way down I don't, that camera you can see, that's now oblong, that's not completely round. And the problem if you do that, it won't fit in the hole. Now I know it goes this way, but as you can see, it's not round and it actually gets stuck. So I'll just show you this way. It won't go in. So you have to make sure these connections are round. Well, not perfectly round, but a lot rounder than that. And as you can see from the connection that I've just done, you can push this in and this will go all the way in. I don't want to do it because I want to put this on here first, but as you can see, that will go in. It's not going to get caught. It doesn't just go that far, it goes all the way in. It's not going to get caught. So it's a good thing just to make sure your connections are round, because when your cover's on, you won't be able to tell properly if it goes all the way in, and it might not be making proper connection, and you'll be thinking, well, why is the car not starting? And the last place you're going to look is here. So just double make sure that that connection does go in and it goes in all the way. Now this is the thing when you're doing a job like this, everything keeps changing. Like, I've changed my mind a few times. On the main lead that goes to the coil, I've put a 90 on it. So when the actual cap is in, as you can see, this comes off at a 90. So we're not, it used to be a straight, and as you can see, you're kind of putting pressure on that wire there. So what I've done is I've made it a 90, so this can go off to the coil and it's a straight connection. It's not putting pressure on the actual connection here. It's nice and straight. So that's something I kind of thought of as I was doing it. And also, I cut this connection in half and showed you how to fit it, but I've stopped that. I didn't like the connection, even though it would have worked, but I just didn't like it. We have enough room to actually get one of these connections, straighten it out. So as you can see, I've just straightened it out. To put the straight connection on, but lucky enough this rubber cap is long enough to actually take that. So that's what I'm doing now. So I'm just going to put it exactly the same way in. Squeeze the two ends down. Again, hopefully this is coming through. Squeeze the two ends down and really give these a nice squeeze down and also a squeeze together. Now these doesn't matter if they're sticking out slightly like that. These don't have to be perfectly round. All that has to be perfectly round is this connection down here. But now this will still slide on to about there, because that's where it needs to be. Oh, so this will slide on to about there, and it fits in nice and easy, just like that. Now the only thing I've got to do, I've got to be careful, is number one, well it's falling off, it doesn't matter. Number one, I can't make up on the bench. This is number one lead. I have to make up on the car because I have to slide that little electrode thing through, or little electromagnet, whatever it is, so it can actually monitor the spark. So I'm going to do that on the car. That's the last one I've got to do. But it's going to be done exactly the same way. And as you can see, they're a lot thicker, a lot nicer, and I think especially with this connection here being a 90, it's not going to put so much pressure, because this is the most important lead. This is the lead that brings all the spark, and then it basically separates it to these ones depending on where the rotary arm is. So it's going to look a lot better. And once I put it in this conduit, again, it's going to just look really neat. We can then put the conduit and maybe cable tie the conduit to some part of the engine that's not hot, obviously, and it'll just look a lot nicer when you look under the bonnet. So let's get cracking. Now, what I figured what this is actually for. This must control the rev counter. So that's what that does. That basically, it reads the spark and it gives you how many revs you're onto the engine. So you have to remember to build this on the engine. So I have to put this connection on the engine because obviously, as you can see, it doesn't come out. So that's just a quick thing. And what I've done here is, as you can see, I've got the actual cap here, and I've put all in a conduit, so it's nice and neat, and the leads are sticking out. I can't put number one in it, but I might be able to put number one in it a little bit. But it's going to make, yeah, I can maybe slide number 1 in just a little bit, but it's going to make a lot neater. And with the 90-degree bend that's on here, that will actually stop. As you can see, that goes to the coil then. That won't put any pressure on the actual coil wire, so there'll be no pressure on the joint there. So again, but that's just, it evolves as you're doing things. You just think of things, you think, oh, that's a good idea, and then it just kind of evolves that way. So what I'm going to do is I'll most probably put this one under here, cable tie it nice and neatly, so you don't really see that. What I'm going to have to do next, I'm going to take the spark plugs out, get ready for the new ones to go in. The 16mm spark plug. Oh, that's very tight. Jesus, that is tight. A longer ratchet, but that is... Oh, that was tight. Now these plugs are going to be very black because the car wasn't running properly. So we're going to put new ones in. With all the new stuff we put in, should be a million times better. The new ones we got are the same name, so we can actually check the numbers, and the numbers are right, which is good. So we definitely know we've got the right plugs, but it's also just a good thing just to check the length, everything about them. And as you can see, that's the black one. Now, when a plug burns properly, the colour you need to look for, it's an old plug, but as you can see, it's kind of a biscuity colour. That's the colour you need to look for. Now, to be fair, on this car, you might not get that exact colour because it is the older kind of style of ignition. This is designed for a coil pack, and obviously it's a lot stronger spark. Now, we are going to get a stronger spark with the system we're putting on, but that kind of gives you a good idea what to actually look for. Again, it's very black, and there's a lot of petrol on there because it wasn't, again. So we are gonna get black crappy plugs. Now, one thing I'm gonna have to be careful of is, I don't know if we've got any problems as with the carburetors or anything like that. If we've got any problems as the gaskets are leaking or anything like that, that means it's going to be drawing more air in, so it's going to be tricky to start. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put all the system in and then see if it starts. If we're still having problems, then we know we're going to maybe have to look into this, but hopefully that's not the case. Number 3 spark plug is kind of awkward on this, so I'm going to have to maybe get a different extension. No, there's one extension. No, I'll get one on that. Unless I put it first. There we go. Now, practice quickly. Do that by hand. And there's the last one out. So I'm going to put these 4 plugs in. No point in me filming it. Exactly the same as taking them out. So yeah, I think we figured out what this is for. I think it's actually a bit of both. I think from the looks of it, you can plug some sort of diagnostic tool in there, some sort of old-fashioned tester, and I do think it's for the speedo. So I think it's for a bit of both. It looks like it does cover other things too, but you know, that's basically what it is. What we're going to do on the next video is we're going to actually get to this fella. This is what's going to take me a lot of time, and that's why I'm going to do a separate video on it. Once I get all the gubbins and everything put inside there, then we need to see if this starts, and then I'm going to have to go through all the wires, check all the connections, make sure there's enough voltage going to where there needs to be, and then just kind of go through there. So I'm guessing there's maybe going to be 3 parts to this video, not 100% sure yet, and hopefully it goes quite smoothly. I'm going to have to time it however you look at it, but hopefully that won't be too bad. And yeah, so look, that's it. I'm going to call it for this video. Hello and welcome to another Bodgit and Leggit video. This is going to be part 2 of this Citroen. Now, I've been at this for a couple of hours, and hopefully I think I've kind of got it right. So I'm going to go through with you what I've done, what I think, and we'll just kind of go from there. Now, I'm just going to move this back for the minute. This was the position of the original distributor. It was in that position there. As you can see, I've got Tipex marks everywhere because this is important. So this was the original markings of the distributor, and as you can see, I've got Tipex marks here and one on this side which you can't see. This is for spark plug number 1 and this is for spark plug number 3. They're just marks for me. So if I whip off this, again, I've got Tipex marks everywhere. Now this Tipex marks here lines up with the middle of here, which means this is cylinder number 1. This is when cylinder number 1 sparks. When you turn the engine and it goes to this mark, it means cylinder number 3 is going to spark. Now, the plan is to hide our new part in behind here. So I'll just move that out of the way. Now, as we can see, I've got more Tipex marks down here. You might not be able to see, but I've marked these little weights inside because I'm going to have to take the distributor off, and I want to make sure I get it back in the same place because otherwise it's going to cause an absolute nightmare. Now, what we have to do with this little chopper, now I'm hoping this chopper is right. It looks right, to be fair. Once I put it in the middle here, it lines up with all the little contacts inside. So each chopper lines up with the contacts inside. So I'm pretty certain it's right. So what I have to do is, I'm going to fit it into here. Now I'm not 100% sure yet how I'm going to actually seal it to this. I might just put a few washers to kind of keep it pressed in. I'm not 100% sure yet. But anyway, I have marked this. So this is the only place it can go. This can't turn. So for that to work, I have to turn the distributor to line up with cylinder number 1. And it does line up, but cylinder number 3 is just a bit out. So you can see, hopefully on the top, I've got a thicker mark, and when I turn the distributor to about there, these marks line up. Now that hasn't affected, as you can see, if I put this, that hasn't affected anything here. I would prefer to be able to turn this slightly this way, but unfortunately I can't. So I think that's going to be my best option to go with this particular setup. And what I'm going to have to do next is to take all this off to put this on. Now, again, the tricky part with this, just take this off. I have to line it. This is going to have to go in and around, let's say there. I'm not 100% sure, so I'll just put this back on. So I'll just put this on, we'll see where this has to go. It's just very fiddly, and it's just going to take a lot of time before I do anything to actually get this on. Now, this is going to have to go roughly about there, I'm guessing. Now the only way I can do that is I need to drill 2 little holes, but as we can see, the next problem is I can't drill the hole there. So yeah, that's a bit frustrating now. So I didn't see that because it's the first time I put that on. I can't drill a little hole in the side here because this tab is in the way. Let me just move the camera around, see a bit better now. That's not going to work there. Now, this is where it kind of gets tricky. Now, maybe it's not going to affect anything if I put it down here, or even like that, and potentially use this as number 1. The only reason I say that is because this little gadget is not going to know that this is number 1 here. I'm setting this up to be number 1, so it's not going to know any difference. Even though the actual rotary arm is going to be pointed up that way, which is not going to make any difference to me, it's still going to spark at number 1 here. So I might have to do something like that. But even that there now, let me see that one. See, we're getting very close to all these little nubs. So maybe, let's see, definitely can't do it there. We're not going to be able to do it there. So this is now just turned into more of a nightmare. Now I think we'll get away with it there. I think we will get away with it there. But again, I'm going to have to rip the distributor out just to see before I do this. And because I've got everything marked, it doesn't make a difference. I can just put it back in if it's not going to work out. So, yeah, I'm just going to see now if that will work. I can't see why it won't work, because it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't know. I'm setting this up as number 1, so it doesn't know which one is number 1, 2 or 3. I'm going to have to do a bit more thinking on this, and then I'll turn the camera back on and I'll see where we're at, and hopefully we can figure something out. Right, hopefully this is all coming across. We have the distributor here and I've got it all marked. It's very important, before you take it off, you need to mark the actual body of the distributor, so where the actual main body to where it fits onto the car, which is very important. But not only that, you have to also mark the inside of it so you know where it goes back. Because, for example, if I take this out, I can spin this, as you can see. Oh, maybe not. I can spin this in any direction and just fit it back. The body of it will line up, but the inside is nowhere near the right angle for it to spark. So it's very important that you actually mark everything before you take it out, mark everything properly. Now what I've done is, and it sounds very simple, all I needed to do was to drill 2 holes in the main body of this distributor here to line up this bracket to hold the special thing, the actual electrode, to make it spark. And that sounds very simple, and it's taken me hours upon hours to figure this out, but hopefully I've done it. So as we can see, I've got a hole here and a hole there. I've had to modify this bracket, so I've had to shave off the legs, make it a bit thinner, because I was having clearance issues with the weights that are inside here. As you can see, this spins around, and I needed this bracket low enough inside the distributor so it would fit and line up with the chopper, so it would all be in the right place. So hopefully I have managed, I think, to have done this. As you can see, I've got two spots in here because I have to slightly move the actual electrode part to the side. Right, the tricky part was getting this bracket lined up properly so the infrared detector would then line up with the chopper, and not only the chopper, it would also line up with the rotary arm spark. So everything had to line up together, which is what's took me such a long time. This chopper will only fit, because if you look at this, it's not completely round. The chopper will only fit on this in one direction. And unfortunately, where it's actually fitting, if I can get it back down now, the place it would actually sit, it was slightly off centre to the rotary arm, which wasn't going to do any good for me. And I only needed it moving to the left about 2 mil. Now what I've had to done is, inside it you've got these little legs. I don't know if the camera's going to show that up. There's little legs that they're like little grippers, because this is designed to fit onto the rotary arm and grip, but obviously we're not doing that. So I had to skim away 3 of the little legs inside and leave 3 there. And what that allows me then to do is to fit this and move it, which you might be able to see, move it the 2 mil to the left, which then lines it up with everything. So once I've put this infrared detector in the right place, that lines up with number 1 cylinder, and also the rotary arm lines up with number 1 cylinder. So yeah, that is taking me hours just to do that, because I had clearance problems. So every time, before I drilled the holes, I had to make sure that when this spins around, it doesn't, as you can see now, it's too low, so it won't spin around. So I had to make sure it's completely in the right place, so this spins around, nothing catches, and it's going to work properly. And not only that, when I put everything in, it's not going to rip itself apart. And then even to drill the other hole, the hole on the opposite side, to make sure I got that in the right place, was just an absolute nightmare. But I finally done it. So you can see one hole there and one hole there. What I've got to do now before I go any further is I've got to drill the 2 holes for this plate so the infrared detector can be moved as well. So you can see at the minute the infrared detector is there, but I need the infrared detector about there. So I'm going to drill and tap them 2 holes. The M4 M4 is the size of the bolts. So I'm going to drill and tap these. Get this to fit then. Now here we go. I think I've got it done. Doesn't look much. It's technically only had to drill 4 holes, but then 4 holes to get this lined up and thingy has taken forever. And I'm going to have to glue this chopper down. I think it's going to be the best thing to do. But basically, as we can see, I've got marks on the distributor of the cylinders. So we've got on the firing order 1, 3, 4, 2. So number 1 is lined up with the Tipex mar. That's chopper number 1 gone through. As I twist it around, can't see now, chopper number 2. And as I twist it around to all of them, they all line up with the marks. So I should be fine. Now I might have to adjust the distributor slightly, but we can adjust the distributor once it's in. So I'm not 100% sure because this is the first time I've done anything like this. Normally it's just an easy case of fitting them, but just to get all the clearances right so I allow everything to turn so nothing gets caught, everything's lined up, is taking ages. There was no point in me filming it because it was just to be too boring. I had to put that down, I had to turn it around, I had to make sure it wasn't getting caught, then I had to line up the distributor marks, and it's taken forever. But as we can see now, I've actually got it. So if I take off the rotary arm, you can see, and as that turns, the rotors go through the sensor, cutting the sensor, which will then, from these leads here, then turn that sensor cut into a spark, basically. So that's the way it works. And as you can see, everything is fine and dandy. Yes, but believe me, to get here, absolute nightmare. But we're now here. So what I'm going to do, I'm now going to fit this and start wiring everything up, and hopefully shortly we'll be able to hear noise coming out of this. The next stage is taking out all the old points from the top of the distributor and fitting the 2 together. I've got to hide the wires, still a bit tricky things to come, so I'm going to take out the 2 screws for the actual plate. This will just give us enough room to clear all our new parts in the distributor. That's if they want to come out. This bolt is just turning. The threads must be damaged inside this one. Yeah. So that wasn't even holding on, that second bolt. But lucky enough, we don't need that anymore, so it's not going to cause us a problem. I just need to get this plate out. So that's the actual striker plate. Now we need to get the point out of the way. Little clip here, which hopefully I can pull out. You can just see, again, I don't know if it's coming through, but just a little clip. You just pull out the clip.
I hope you're getting the point.
It's just not funny. It's just not funny. So, yeah. See what I've got to put up with. So I'm going to take out this. Now, what we're actually doing is we can still put everything back. I'm not damaging anything here, so you could still always put it back to the old style, which I don't know why you would ever want to, but the option is there. So we're not actually doing anything to this. So there's the points. You can take off condenser as well. Get that out of the way. And like I did say, you can keep the condenser there, so if someone looks, it does look like you've still got points, but it's not really going to make any difference. So we're going to take the condenser out. Now we're just left with this plate here, and hopefully I can take this out because I'm going to need to. So yeah, just need to get that out of the way. It's another little clip. Pull the clip back. Again, hopefully this is coming through on camera. I'm going to struggle to film this. I'm going to try. I'll take the little clip out to drop the pin, which it won't do. Lift that up first then. Lift that up, get that out of the way, which then should allow us to take off the actual plate here, which it does. And we've got the spring left there. We don't need that because that's just going to get in my way, so I'm going to make a little plate here just to blank that, because we don't need the vacuum on this anymore because we're not using the same setup. And hopefully I can knock out this pin, because I think the pin's going to get in our way. So we can knock out the pin. So as you can see, the little pin's come out. It was just on some spline, so I've just literally got a little punched it down. Now I think we can keep this little screw there. So what we've got to do now is we've got to see, once we put this back, if everything we've done will line up. Goes there like that. So now I've got to fit everything inside there to see if everything lines up. I'm going to have to put everything back again, and yeah, so I'm going to put everything back now, back in, and put the cap on, and let's see what happens. Right, so I haven't got everything properly, because what I'm going to do is, they're on but they're not properly secure. I'm going to put Loctite on each of these bolts, because there's not many threads holding them on, so I'm going to put Loctite and everything just to secure it. But what I'm doing now is I'm just seeing for clearance. So we know it spins, and we know we are, get it up close to the camera. So as you can see, the choppers are going through, and it should be, from what I can see at the minute, very close to being on actual line. So we might have to adjust the whole thing, but that's to do with timing. Now what we need to do is put this plate on top. So what I'm going to do is, lucky enough, we've got a couple of holes where we've got a big hole where the vacuum used to be, so we can feed the wires through there. And as we can see, once I got that on, so we need to connect these wires to a box, but that doesn't matter for the minute. So once I've got that on, as you can see, we can still turn it. Everything is fine, so we know we've cleared everything. So we're going to be fine. The rotary arm goes on top here. These wires go into the box, and that is really as simple as that. So this will then go back on like that. We have our wires here which we're going to connect to our new box. I'm going to have to make some sort of plate up here, or do something to stop most of the crap getting in. And that's really it. So what basically happens is, once the rotary arm goes on here, I can't obviously spin it now because I'm spinning the engine, but this spins round with the engine. The cap goes on. And that is essentially it. The only thing is, these three wires are the only things you're going to really see. Now in the old system there was two wires coming out, so you know, but again we can kind of hide these wires in behind the HT lead, so you won't really see them as such. But I'm not sure exactly where we're going to run them yet, because we've got that little control box that we have to run them to. But that is essentially it. So yeah, believe me, it doesn't look like much, but the amount of time it's taken me to line this up, to get the clearance, to get everything, was an absolute nightmare, considering this kit isn't designed for this engine. The only thing that seemed to be designed for it was the actual rotor. Now, look enough, the rotor lined up with all the marks as it should have done. If the rotor doesn't, then you're in trouble, because it's the rotor here that actually tells it when to spark. So you could even have it offset, it doesn't matter, but you need to make sure when this rotor hits, that's when it's going to spark on the whichever spark plug it happens to go onto. So that's the most important part. And like I said, it's technically only 2 bolts to put that in, but believe me, it is taking me a long time to figure it out. I had to keep dry fitting it, because every time I put it in, I was hitting the weights inside the distributor. So I had to move it, I had to grind bits off, I had to get the bolts the right size, and it's just the measurements, because before I was putting it down here, it wouldn't clear properly. Then once I got it here, I had to move the sensor, because the sensor was in the wrong place. Then we had to move the rotor slightly, so I had to modify the rotor. So once I glue the rotor in, we should be fine then, because if I don't glue the rotor in, if it comes off, if this rotor comes off, it could do an awful lot of damage. So it's important that that rotor is glued on. Technically, it should fit onto the bottom of the rotary arm on the normal kits. You shouldn't have to glue it on, but I'm going to have to glue it on this particular case. I can't really see any other way around it. Worst case scenario, if it ever does break, we'll just get a new rotor. It's going to be annoying when it's glued on, but I can't really see any other way around it. And to be fair, as long as nothing moves, this rotor will never really get damaged. So it should really last forever as such. You know, so we shouldn't have a problem there either. I'm just going to have to make something up for this, something up for here, some sort of metal plate to stop most of the crap from going in. And that really is essentially it. I mean, it's not really much more to go now, I don't think. I shouldn't have said that now, because that's mostly going to come back to bite me. But yeah, I think essentially we are very, very close. We do have to make sure that the holes I've made, well, not so much the holes I've made, but the holes we've opened up are going to have to be blocked off, because we don't want to get crap in here. Even though if we do, it shouldn't really matter, but we still want to keep that inside there as clean as possible. So once I've got this on, there is going to be a few things we're going to have to sort out just to get it kind of watertight. It's just a case of wiring. Now, the 3 wires coming out of the distributor go into another block connector, which goes into this connector here. Then we just have a few more connections that go into, you know, earths and stuff like that. Very simple. I just need to figure out which is the best place to put this, because I want to kind of hide this. I don't want this to be, you know, seen here. I just want to kind of hide it, and hopefully we should have enough to hide it somewhere down near the coil. I'm hoping I can mount it at the back of the coil or something, but I mean, that's not really, that shouldn't be too hard, hopefully, anyway. And it's just a case of getting these wires nice and neat. I might have to bring the wires up to here and tape them inside this one. I'm not sure yet, we'll figure that out later. But that's really essentially it. It's just wiring now. So I'm going to leave the wiring to the final part of this video, and hopefully I've explained what I've done here. It is fairly simple, it just takes a long time to get lined up. With if it was the normal kit for this, you'll have this part done in seconds. It's not really a big deal. It's just the wiring then that can take a while, but hopefully now we should be very, very close to hearing this thing fire, and fire properly. Fingers crossed. And what we also need to do is we need to open up the spark gap as well to 0.6. I didn't mention that on the other video, because we've got a bigger spark now. We can open up the spark plugs to 0.6, and yeah, so we'll have bigger spark, and everything should run a million times better. But what I have done is I haven't done any damage or anything here, so if someone ever wanted to put back to the original points, you can actually do that. It's important not just to rip everything out, because you know you can always put it back at a later stage if you want to. So I'm going to call it for that video. Next video is going to be wiring, and hopefully maybe hearing it starting. Hello and welcome to what hopefully is the final part of this video. We're going to wire this all in. I'm having a few little problems in the sense of where to put everything, but we're going to kind of wire it in and then maybe go placement afterwards. The first thing we need to do, I need to put this connection, these three wires in this connection block. Now you're not able to see on camera, but you've got they're marked 1, 2 and 3. And the easiest way to find out which ones are which, if you come on to your other one, it's actually marked 1, 2 and 3. So we know number 1 is red. So I can put the red one into number 1 because they're matching up with the same, they're also matching up. These just push in. You just need to push them in and they clip in just like that. So number 2 has to be black, only one left. Right, so got that done, that's the easy part. Now they're all in. Just connect this just to make sure it actually does work. And there we go. I just pulled out that connection. So just need to make sure that's definitely in properly. It is now. Try again. Now, so we have that connected up. Now hopefully you can see here, yeah you can. This is the only place I can think of putting this control box. I can put it closer down here to the coil, but I don't want to put it down there because all the crap from the road can come up and hit it. Even though it's a sealed unit, but I just want to keep it as clean as possible. I'd like to get it inside here, but the wires aren't long enough. So the only place I can really think of putting it that it's going to be easy to get to, because that's the key, we need it easy to get to if we're having problems with it, is here. Now it doesn't affect anything here, you know, we can still get the air filter and everything out, but I would personally prefer to kind of hide it a bit more than that, but I can't really see me being able to do that, unfortunately. And at least now with this I can actually hide the wires underneath here, so you're not going to really be able to see the wires as such. So I think that's where I'm going to put it. It's the only place I can put it. So what we need to do now is wire it in. I've disconnected the battery, and the power off the battery, so that's important. That's the first thing we need to do. And it's kind of straightforward after that. We have this violet wire here, which goes to the negative side of the coil, so that just clips in the coil. We have a black, which is an earth, so again that can actually be bolted in behind the unit and be put to an earth, so that's simple enough. Now the next one is this red wire. Now there's a few different ways of doing this. What we need is we need a switchable line, and what I mean by that is, so as soon as the ignition turns on, this has to be live. This isn't a constant live. If you put this in a constant live, you'll burn out the box, because you're only supposed to have this unit on for 10 minutes before, 10 minutes without starting the car. So any longer than 10 minutes with the ignition on, you could do damage. So we need it, so as you turn the ignition on, this switches to live. Now we can most probably go to the coil for that, or what we can also do is go to the ignition. The only downside to it is it's a lot more wiring. So what I need to do now is, we have a few wires we're not using. These 2 wires we're not going to use again. These are for the old points. And we have a wire on the coil pack which we're not going to use. So what I'm going to do to find out which wires are which, even though to be fair they're the same colour, but I'm going to show you how to figure out which is the right wire. Now what I'm going to do to find out which wire is which, I've got my tester and I've put it on a continuity test. So when I put them together, wait for the traffic to stop, you hear a buzzer. So I'm going to put it on this end and then pull it to the coil end, which you can't, I don't think you can see. I've got the wire here. And just put this in here. And as you can hear, that is buzzing. So we know we don't need that wire anymore. And what that does is, that releases a connection for our box. So we can now put the violet wire on the coil, so it goes on the negative, and all we need to do with this we won't cut this away. I'm just going to take that up, if you can see that. I'm just going to take that up so it's out of the way. I'm going to leave the wire in there, but it's not going to be used. So again, if you want to convert it back, you've got that option. Same with these. I'm just going to put these together, tape them up so they're not going to catch anything, and just kind of hide them down there, because there's no point cutting. So all we really need to do now is put the earth on and connect this. We are simply wired up. I'm still going to have to hide all the wires, but we're essentially there. So now I have the main feed here, so when you turn on the ignition, this sends the full voltage to the coil. But the problem is, as you can see, it's very, very rusty, and sometimes I'm getting 12 volts, sometimes I'm getting 2 volts. It could just be the connection, or it could be a problem with the wire all in here. I've tried tracing it back, but this connection is stopping me, so I'm going to put a new connection on it, and then I'm going to see, was it just a connection, or have we got other problems? Once I've got a good clean connection, I know I can kind of go on and see if I can trace the wire. But then if I'm getting a good clean connection here, and I'm always getting voltage, I know it was just a connection. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a straight connection on. Crimp it down. Just check it to make sure it's okay. Got my heat wrap then, which I'm just going to seal it. The reason why I don't like using the sealed type ones is because they're not. They don't seem to give a good seal. Water can get in behind here, and once water gets in behind and it starts sitting in here, it'll just rust it. Sometimes you're better off with just leaving the connection bare, to be fair, but you don't want it to cross anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this heat strap on it, which will then close both ends, and we should be fine. Now, as you can see, that end's completely closed. So for the water's going to have to get all the way up there to settle in there, which is not going to really happen. But the most important thing is now I've got a good connection, so I can now try and see if we've got problems with voltage. Was it just the connection, or was it other things? Now I've done that, and it looks like we're okay in the sense of, hopefully it's going to come through. When I put the connection on, we're getting 15 volts. Now the reason we're getting 15 volts is because I'm charging the battery. So normally you wouldn't be getting 15 volts just because I've got the battery charger on. But as you can see, we're constantly getting that now, where before we was up on 3 volts and then 8 volts, and so we was up and down. Now we're getting a constant steady voltage. So that's good. It looks like it was just the actual connection, and like I said, this personally, no water's going to get in here. It's kind of the best way of doing it, in my opinion. So, now we know we've got that, which has saved me a lot of hassle. Because rather than try and trace back the wire, trying to find a cut, what I'm going to do now is, I'm going to put, lucky enough, on the kit we get, for the power wire, they gave us a little connection, which I can't get off. They gave us a little connection which actually will bolt onto the coil, and it'll give us the right connection so we can connect the power wire. The reason why I can connect the power wire to this coil is because once you turn the ignition off, the power goes off, which is important. If the power didn't go off and that box stayed powered, you would damage it. But because it goes off, I can actually put it to the coil, which just saves me a hell of a lot of wiring and a lot of messing around. I'm using all the connections that came with it, so it's going to be nice and neat. We're not going to have an issue as regards that. All I've got to do is loosen the 8mm bolt on the coil, and I'm going to fit this wire to it. Right, so I've replaced all the connections on the coil. There's no point me showing you because it's exactly the same way as I did the first one. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to mount this box. Now, there's a couple of ways of doing it. If you use self-tappers, which I personally don't like, because if you're self-tappers, to screw them in once and leave them there, no problem. But if you need to screw it out or anything like that, you're not going to be able to do it. Self-tappers, once you screw them in and out a few times, they're kind of no good. So what I'm going to use is this gadget. Now, this is like a pop rivet gun, but these rivets are special. I don't know if the camera's going to show you, but inside them is threads. So I drill a hole, I put this through the hole, clamp it down, and when it leaves behind, it leaves a threaded nut, you could say, behind, captive nuts, which means I can screw them in and out loads of times. It will earth it as well, it'll do everything it needs to do, and it's absolutely brilliant. So what I need to do first is put this in a place where I can use it, and then mark it. So I think there is good. Get my Tipex. Hopefully the Tipex will mark it for me. It's marked one, but it hasn't marked the other one. Back. Maybe my Tipex mark. Hope I'm not getting in the way of this. And let's try and mark that. Doesn't want to mark the other one for some reason. We'll drill one first anyway to line it up. It's always best just to do one first, just so we get it lined up. 7.5mm drill bit. Now you have to be careful, there's nothing in behind it because I'm now drilling where the wheel is. You want to make sure you're not going to pop the tyre, you're not going to cut any wires or anything, so you do have to be careful. And make sure your battery in your drill is charged. Now what will happen is, that will fit down there as you can see. Once I crimp that together, you'll have a lovely threaded bit left behind. They're absolutely brilliant. Before I do that, I need to sand this. I just like to get a bit of sandpaper on just to take the paint off, just to make it a little bit better as regards, because I'm going to earth this. Now actually I don't need to do it on this one. I'll do it on this one. Well, it doesn't really matter, I'll do it on this one, but I need to do it on one of them, because I'm going to put the earth for the box on it. Now, that'll do lovely. Next thing I want to do is just thread this bar onto this machine, very simple. As you can see, let's set it down a little bit more. And now, just put it in and squeeze. I just need to thread that a bit more. Now you can actually turn this down. We need to go a bit more. And as we can see, what we got left behind is a perfect threaded bolt left behind. And you know, you can take this in and out loads of times, it's not going to affect anything. I'm just doing it from underneath so I can make sure it's not going to hit the tyre, it's not going to do anything. It's nice and strong, you can use that over and over again, so you can take the box in and out, and yeah, I mean it really is as simple as that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the next one, and then we can plant the box. Now this is where I've got to hope nothing's moved. I've got my measurements right. There's always a chance something's moved. And we're looking good. We have to cut these bolts, but I just want to make sure they actually fit. Now, that's brilliant. So the bolts line up. I'm going to have to cut them, maybe cut them in half. But yeah, that's it. So that's the next thing. I'm just going to cut these. I'm going to put them on properly. I'm going to put the earth underneath onto it. Once I've done that, I'll turn the camera back on and we'll go from there. Now we're really ready and I'm getting excited. I have the box in, it's nice and mounted. So that's in, that's good. The wires are messy at the minute. I'm not going to worry about the wires because I want to make sure this starts before I start kind of tidying the wires up. I got the distributor in now. The distributor is lined up, but I could be 180 degrees out. I'm not sure yet. Because we've had the distributor in and out a lot of times, I might be 180 degrees out, but if I am, I just need to turn the engine again. If I am, I'll show you. It's fairly straightforward. So we have the distributor in. It's not tight, I can still adjust it. I've disconnected this wire, so I'm going to have to connect this wire back, and I also haven't connected the main power wire yet, but I'll do that in a minute. But what I'm going to do next is I want to show you the spark plug gap. So with the new one now, because we've got modern electronics in it, we need 0.6 of a mil of a gap, so 0.6, and as we can see I've got the feeler gauge there and that's 0.6, just so it's kind of tight. So we know the gap is okay, so we can put number one spark plug back in. Now, so that's in. Next thing I want to do is put one. You can't hear when it clips in, it's a bit. I would prefer to hear a click, but I can't really hear anything. I'm not actually in. It's not a nice feeling. There we go. I'm in now. I heard it that time. So we've got 1, 2. Clear it up. Now, I have all the leads on. Now I think they're on. They feel like they're on. I don't like the feeling of them, to be honest. It doesn't really feel great, but we'll know in a few minutes. Hopefully they're on. So I'm going to put the cap back on, the rotary arm back on, and I'll put the cap on. Lined up. The cap is now on, the rotary arm is on. Like I said, I'm not worried about all the wires in kind of a messy thing for the minute. I'm going to connect this back. Now, I think we are ready. The vacuum pipe off here. Goes underneath the air filter, so I'll put that on. Like I said, we might be 180 degrees off, but we'll know fairly quickly if we are, because it's going to kind of go bang, 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 bang. So yeah, what we're going to do, we're going to now see. Take off the battery charger, connect the battery lead back up properly, turn the camera back on, and we're ready to start. Right, so here we go. Like I said, a couple of things could happen now. Is it could start banging and backfiring because we're 180 degrees off. It might not even try and start because we might not have these spark plugs on properly. But what we're going to do now is we're going to see. So just crank it, see what happens. Well, that doesn't seem like it's going fast enough. No. Try again. Okay, yep. Right, we might have to put jump leads on this. That doesn't seem like it's going fast enough. No, it doesn't. Will your jump leads reach one of that? So it went, go for it. Hey! Yeah! Put it off! Put it off! Fucking off! Because the what do you call it? The chopper, I haven't sealed the chopper will fly off. It works! Ha! Oh man, I'm well impressed.
Sounded fucking nice, you know.
It sounds nice. Now the reason why I'm more excited than kind of usual is because this kit was never designed for this car. I basically mocked it all up. I've had to get the measurements, and if I was wrong with the measurements, it wouldn't work. So the fact that it works, and it does sound kind of nice, that's why I'm really happy, because rather than just sticking a kit in, I kind of feel proud that I've managed to, well, so far anyway, I mean, let's not get carried away, but it's a nice feeling to know that you've basically made something, well, not so much made something, but made something fit that wasn't designed for the car. So, yeah, let's get it on! Right, the reason why I turned it off was because I didn't know, get under here, this chopper. Now, it hasn't moved, but because this chopper isn't secure, what I was worried about is if it started to come out this way, that chopper could hit that. I don't think it's going to so much break the infrared sensor, but it'll break the chopper, and then I'm going to be it's more hassle. So what I'm going to try and do now is I'm going to try and find some washers just to pack this little space up, just for the time being, just so I can have this running a little bit for a lot longer, and just to see if I'm okay. So that's what I've got to find now, some washers that are going to sit over this and not interrupt with the infrared sensor. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with this yet. I think gluing it is going to be the answer, but I'm not 100% sure yet. But what I'm worried about is it pulling away from it. So I made this little spacer. It's just a bolt. I cut out the middle and I've just grinded it down so I've got the right thickness. What that's going to do is that's going to sit in there. Once I put the cover on, it's going to stop the chopper from coming out. So it should mean I should be able to start this for longer. Now that chopper might not move, but I just want to be on the safe side. So I'm just going to put this back, then we're going to start it again and leave it running this time for a bit longer. Now, this back on. This back on. And now let's start it.
Fingers.
Alright.
Ignition.
Put it on a little bit. Yeah, that'll do. See that? I leave this ticking over, as you can see, it's rising up. Move the camera out of the way. Now I have to say, that sounds very sweet. I thought I might have to do a bit of tuning, but I don't think I'm going to have to, but I won't know yet. I'm going to let this heat up first, because it's important to let this heat up and see if it starts when it's hot. That's the important thing. Because we'll know if it starts when it's hot, we'll know we've got the timing kind of right. So we're just going to have to let this heat up first. But I have to say, so far so good. So, sounds lovely, doesn't it? Right, as you can see, we've got everything nice and tidy. Hope this is all coming across. I've tidied all the wires, but not only that, again, hopefully I can show you this. I've put conduit around all the wires, just so you see it coming here. Comes all the way up here and all the way down there. I've left the middle there where it's joined, and then I put conduit all the way in there. So all the wires are covered by conduit. This black conduit is absolutely brilliant. You can get all different colours, but it protects the wires. It makes them look neater. When you look down there, you can't really see it, so you're not seeing 3 or 4 different wires, all different colours. It just looks a million times neater. If you're going to do a job, you might as well do it properly. And basically, you get it in all different thicknesses and different sizes, but it's a split in one end, as you can see, and you just feed your wires or whatever you are going through it. It's absolutely brilliant, and it's not really that expensive for what it can do. The next thing I'm going to do is I have to strip all this now again, because I have to glue everything in place and Loctite everything. So once I've got all this stripped off, I will show you what I'm going to do with it. Right, as you can see, we're back down into the innards of the distributor. I'm going to take off the little spacer I made. We don't need that anymore. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this rotor again, just with a new mark, so I know exactly where it goes. So now I need to take off this rotor, or the chopper should I say, which lucky enough I can just do. A bit of luck, but again we can do it. Now what I need to do, I need to undo all these bolts and put Loctite on all of them. So I'll do one and I'll show you, and then there's no point me showing you the rest because it's going to be all the same. So I'm going to take one off at a time. So just put Loctite over it and put quite a lot because I want it to stay there. I'm going to tighten that up. Just do the same with all the other 4. Once I've done that, I'll turn the camera back on. Now, I've just noticed the camera wasn't recording, so I don't know how much I've got of this. What I've done is I've mixed some 2-pack epoxy glue and I put a bit of sand in it, just to give it a bit of a gritty feel to it, just so when it sits in it. So, like I said, I don't know how much I've got, but I've just mixed some 2-pack epoxy glue and I've just pushed it on, and all I'm doing is now I'm just gathering the glue from the bottom and just keep making sure it's going to go around the whole thing nice and evenly. So yeah, I was talking to myself on the camera, and unfortunately it was a kind of important part that I've missed. Well, all I was doing, to be fair, is just I put all glue inside the chopper and I just pushed it on, and as the glue was coming out, because obviously I used too much, the glue came out on this side, and I'm just trying to keep the glue set so it's all around nice and even. It's not just glooping to the bottom too much. It's going to take me a few minutes just to be messing around with this to keep it as nice and even as I can. And after a few minutes, hopefully that's set and we're sorted. So I'm going to turn the camera off. Once I've got this set, we'll turn it back on, and hopefully we are more or less done. Yeah, can't believe I missed all that. Anyway, like I was explaining, it's just 2-pack epoxy glue. I mixed it with sand, put it inside the chopper, pushed the chopper onto the bar and let it set. That's essentially all I did. Now, it's all set. I've got a nice glue all the way around and inside, so hopefully it shouldn't go anywhere. The only other thing I did, I slightly trimmed the chopper blades. Just took a few mil off each blade just to give me a little bit more clearance. It's not going to affect anything, but I just did it. And now all I've got to do is put this back. This should hopefully fit now, because the glue, now that's the important part. If you do this, make sure you don't put the glue too far down this shaft, because otherwise this won't fit on. So you have to be careful there. This should now go on, as it does. Push that back in there, it's just a little seal. The seal can go back. And now all I've got to do is put the 3 bolts back in, 3 little screws. These 3 are now tight. There we go. Right, I've cleaned all the marks, all my Tipex marks off the distributor. I've also cleaned them off here, but what I've done is, the camera might not show up, but I've got a little saw blade and I've just put a cutter mark into this. The reason why I've done that is because if we have a problem with this down the line, if this moves, I'll know it's got moved and I know where to set it to. The Tipex marks can look a bit untidy, so that's why I've done that. Next thing to do is tidy up this and take all the Tipex marks off my cap, because again, it can just look untidy. Now, I need to now start this again to make sure everything is okay, but before I do that, I'm just going to wipe all these Tipex marks off this. Right now, we've pretty much done everything, cleaned up all the wires, glued everything in. I've left the glue for about half an hour or so, even though it does dry in about 5-10 minutes, I've left it for half an hour before I start it. I'm going to start it, let's see if it does start. If it doesn't, we're in trouble. So I'm going to see if it starts, and if it starts, I'm going to take it for a drive over the next couple of days just to make sure everything's working fine. So fingers crossed. The choke is on, but it does start, sounds good, so I'm glad that this video has worked. Take this for a drive over the next few days, and yeah, so look, and hope it helps. Thumbs up and subscribe, and don't forget to get your hands dirty. See you for the next one.